Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. I'm experimenting, I guess, with a different type of content right now, and I'd really appreciate your feedback on it. I watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and I initially skipped watching it, when it was in theaters, and then wasn't planning on watching it at all until someone, maybe one of the patrons, said, I'd still be interested in hearing your thoughts on the themes of this movie at some point. The reason I was going to skip it is I don't like making reviews, I don't like doing negative reviews. And so I tend to just avoid reviewing movies that I highly suspect I'm not going to enjoy. I don't need to add more negativity to the internet. But I took that suggestion to heart and thought I would at least experiment in some off-the-cuff format with giving you guys some of my thoughts on the themes specifically of Thor: Love and Thunder. I will just say briefly that it was confirmed to be not my kind of movie for the same reasons basically that Thor Ragnarok was not my kind of movie. It does have more weight and dramatic substance, and I appreciate them going in that direction. But ultimately, I felt like it was worked against by the humorous tone or attempts at humor the rest of the movie. So that's my thoughts on how I felt about the movie, as an experience for me personally. But getting to the themes, it does have some really interesting philosophical ideas. With the Thor movies, they're talking about gods. But they've treated that, the Thor movies in particular, especially after the first one, have been lighter and lighter, more and more comical. And so treating the idea of these Asgardian gods, quote unquote, with any weight really hasn't been a priority, I don't feel like, at least in terms of like having legitimate worshipers. And the sense I've always gotten is that these quote unquote gods are just aliens, they're really, really, really powerful aliens. They are not actually beings that are behind cosmic realities such as, the human spirit, the intangible spirit and eternal things like life after death. And in this movie, that changes a bit on a couple fronts. One, they are treated as beings that have worshipers and worshipers that they disappoint. In fact, the main villain of this movie, Gore, is, disappointed is to say it lightly, but he's disappointed by the god that he worships, which isn't Thor, it's some other god, maybe from some other pantheon, it's not clear to me. But his daughter dies, and this god that he had been worshiping and giving his entire life to did not save her. And this god, in fact, mocked him when he came into his presence, asking for mercy, asking, what's going on? My daughter just died, and so the gods, are kind of seen as, at least there's one line, I can't remember who says it in the movie, but like the gods are supposed to protect, which is interesting to see that as like the primary role of gods. Certainly, I think that we're going to run into disappointment in life if we think that God's primary defining characteristic is protector. But anyway, so when this character Gore is disappointed in his god, he goes on a streak of vengeance against all gods, starting with his, the one that he had been worshiping. His god also had, mocked him and told him there's no eternal reward, there's just death. Because the Gore was basically having this attitude of, what is this all for? Now it's time for my eternal reward. I've suffered through all this, I lost my daughter, and his god was basically like, there's no eternal reward, there's just death, moron, And so he just became embittered and enraged and went on a tear, and he's just out to kill all gods. There's another time where one of the antagonists says that the purpose of worshipers, I think it maybe even is the god that Gore was worshiping. Maybe this was at the beginning. I can't remember now. See, these are the flaws of trying to do this off the cuff, but I really wasn't sure how to approach this kind of content. So any feedback you want to give would be helpful. But he says that the purpose of worshipers is to suffer for their gods. And later on, Gore says to someone else, see, the gods aren't going to help you, they're not going to protect you, they're going to use you, and then they're just going to let you die, So it's, the character Gore, I think, represents intentionally or not, what so many people today and throughout history have felt about God, or the gods that they might worship, or whatever the case might be. That they have been wronged, that they have been unjustly forced to endure horrible tragedy, and their gods are fickle or flawed or callous and uncaring or petty or just horrific people, and I think that, it's so funny. Makes me wonder if God might be orchestrating something, weirdly enough this week. But I just reviewed a video game where the theme was one of antagonism toward the gods, and likewise, there's that theme here as well. And even though as Christians we would say, well, I don't believe in the pantheon. I don't believe in these petty gods with all these character flaws. I believe in Yahweh, who is perfect in goodness, and yet. Even as Christians who believe that, certainly in my own experience, we can start questioning that, wondering, asking, where is God? I mean, I know that the Bible says that he loves more deeply than anyone else does, and yet he's not moving here like I would think he would move if he loved me. So what am I to make of this? And I think that we can stay in a place of questioning. Certainly that's what the psalmists do throughout the Psalms. They're saying, where are you, God? Why are you not acting? What is going on? But at the end of those Psalms, they always say, and yet I will trust you. I know that you are good. So there's a way to go about questioning in agony where God is, why he's not acting, and still be honoring to God. Or there's the bitter path that we can go down where we make assumptions about God's character and we turn against him, and certainly that's a path that many people choose. Both people who were never Christians to begin with and never come to faith in Christ, and also those who are Christians can find themselves going down that path. So I think there is something, even though it's dealing with polytheism and all these other things, that is very relevant for us as believers to be processing and thinking about. And as I said in the other content where I was talking about this theme, I think that's when it's so vital for us to be connected with other believers who will have compassion and understanding for what we're feeling in those moments. Even if they haven't had a similar experience, they will at least be patient with us and be willing to hear our pain and be with us in our pain. But also it's important to be around believers that, in addition to those things, we know are wiser and more knowledgeable than us, and that can potentially provide some insight. Even though it's important to note, many times when we are in the midst of those emotions and asking those questions, we're in a place of such intense emotion that there is no answer. Even if it's completely logically sound, there is no answer that's going to make the pain go away and that's really going to make us feel better in that moment. So anyway, yeah, I think there's definitely some springboards in Thor, Love, and Thunder for processing those kinds of things. Let's see, what else? There's also this theme of choosing to enter into a relationship, specifically a romantic relationship, even knowing that the outcome is almost certainly going to bring us great pain. When we think about, I don't want to get too much into why that is in this story, but I mean, I knew, for example, that having kids and before that getting married was going to lead to pain because I would see them going through hard things, or I would be in conflict with them, or someday, if I live long enough, I would see one or more of them die. So there's all these things that come with truly deep, loving relationships that will bring us pain, almost certainly. And that's not just exclusive to romantic relationships. I think that this idea is common to all deep relationships with people. The more we love and are invested in other people, the more we become vulnerable, both to ways they can hurt us and both to ways that circumstances involving that person, maybe their hurt or their own suffering, can bring pain into our life. And I think that an idea that's put forth in Thor, Love, and Thunder is that it is ultimately worth it to enter into relationships. Again, the context here is romantic, but I would extend that to all kinds of deep relationships, of deep friendships or family relationships. It is worth it to enter into and invest in those relationships, even knowing the pain that it will bring us. Because love is so key to what we are made for. And in fact, there's a character in this movie that even says love is all that any of us want. So anyway, yeah, I think there's some good things that could be processed there. And then finally, what I found interesting is a couple of beats that are related to the afterlife. There's one moment where a character is thinking about someone they love who has passed away, and they don't like the idea that they will be alone. And then in that scene, another character who is about to pass away and knows that they are about to pass away says of this other person who has passed on, they won't be alone. So there was a presumption in that moment of where that other person had gone after death, and a presumption of where that person, the character who was currently dying, where they would go, and it's not that that's inappropriate to have confidence about those things, but what is the basis for that confidence? What is the basis? I mean, this character actually knew almost nothing about this other character that had passed away. And there was also no basis provided for their own confidence in where they themselves would be after they passed away. And so I think that it's following this trend in fictional storytelling in Hollywood, and that I think that we could just find ourselves in as well, of just kind of saying things that sound nice about the afterlife. When someone has passed away, we say, like Leonard Nimoy, when he passed away, I remember someone said, well, he's among the stars now. And I'm thinking, I understand why you would want to think that and why you would want to say that, because it sounds comforting and nice. But what is the basis for that when you really think about that? And the problem is so many of us don't typically think about the real basis for those things. And so I wonder how in the world they can ultimately provide comfort. So anyway, yeah, it's interesting stuff there. And then also related to the afterlife, we witness one character enter into the afterlife in a post-credit scene of Thor: Love and Thunder, which strikes me, I could be wrong, maybe there's some other moment in MCU history I'm not remembering, but I believe that is the first time that the MCU has basically put forth, this is what happens, at least to some people, after they die. What is the eternal destiny of people after they die? I think this is the first time there's ever been anything firmly stated about that. And that's interesting territory for them to go into, given that up to this point, the gods have not, they've ultimately been natural beings grounded in science fiction, and they're ultimately aliens. And so now to attach the idea of Asgard and Valhalla and stuff like that, and saying, okay, now these things, there's a reality to these things, that's a little bit at odds with how they've been treating the gods of Asgard up to this point. And a little bit at odds with, I would say, a subtle undercurrent of naturalism that tends to run through all of the MCU. So it's going to be interesting to see if that post-credit scene was just kind of like a little happy little warm fuzzy moment for us about this character and where they ended up after they died, or if they're actually setting up something that might be relevant later on. I think it's possible that actually there will be characters in Valhalla that re-enter the MCU through cosmic events that bring them back to life. I mean, comics are certainly known for bringing dead characters back to life, and so this wouldn't be out of the ordinary given the medium of the source material. So anyway, yeah, some interesting stuff thematically going on in Thor: Love and Thunder, but I guess those are all my thoughts on it for now. Right now I would like to take some time to write a tune for pre-made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate Dan Excel just reading, Gabriel Stinson, Brian Franklin, Olin D. Branham, Drew Rubb, Winston Crutchfield, Libre, Justin D. Myers, Cosmic Fox, and Joel Nelson. Thank you for supporting me and SBP and CGC. And now to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Want to hear your name in song? Check out our page on Patreon. I would love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected, to share the content, all those things I really appreciate. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this content possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Then, as always, I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey guys, Peter Franson here. Want to play games to save lives? Then join me again this year for Game Save, our annual charity fundraising event in support of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, whose compassionate care and cutting-edge research has been saving the lives of children all over the world for decades. Joining the Game Save team only requires a willingness to ask friends and family to consider donating toward your fundraising efforts. Team members also usually do something fun and game-related to draw attention to their fundraising, like a special game night at your church or home, or like me, you could do a crazy 24-hour video game marathon. Now, I'm theming my fundraising around video games, but you can use tabletop games of any kind. What you do to raise funds is really entirely up to you, but by joining the Game Save team, you can get support and encouragement from myself, from other team members, and have more attention drawn to your fundraising efforts. You can get more info about the origins and heart behind Game Save itself at gamesave.christiangeekcentral.com. To join the team, just follow the invite link below, make an account at tiltify.com. Then from your dashboard, create a new individual campaign using St. Jude Play Live 2022 as your cause, and check Support an Existing Campaign. Type CGC in the campaign search field and select CGC Game Save 22. To help your donors, I recommend including CGC Game Save 22 in the name of your individual campaign as well. After that, it's a short, simple process to finish up, and you'll be an official member of the Game Save 22 team. After that, as team leader, beginning in October, I provide team members with weekly tips and resources to make your fundraising as fun, easy, and effective as possible. October will be our main push for fundraising, capping things off with my annual 24-hour video gaming live stream on November 5th. Although you are welcome to continue fundraising until the end of November 30th, when our official final total will be tallied. If you have any questions before or after signing up, you can reach me anytime at paeter@spiritblade.com. I'm happy to help, and I hope you'll consider being a part of this with me. I can't wait to get started. Thanks for listening.